Things seem quite stable in terms of people joining. I imagine it's tough to find a spot on campus if you're on campus, a quiet one where you can listen to all this. But I will start just to leave some time for questions at the end. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Buglietti. I am the academic lead, undergraduate research. And so I am behind the Pew Awards, but also behind this whole call for applications of the USRA Awards, which is the Student Summer Studentship Awards. We're going to talk about they are not only pure. And I am here facilitating this workshop with the support of Stephanie Bajo, the Senior Research Grants Officer, who will be able to also address the question of grants, for example, specific grants that are not pure. But in general, both of us can speak for this process. So I will start a little bit in a good way by acknowledging that we are located in the heart of Southern Alberta, and we are acknowledging and paying tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, included Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. And the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. So just a reminder to everyone that this session is going to be recorded. There's going to be a Zoom pool at one point, but of course this is anonymous. And then we are going to have a Q&A session, preferably over the chat. So if something is crossing your mind, while I'm talking, there is a question there. You want to write it as it goes, you can do that. And then what you're going to see me doing is when I finish with the slides, I'm going to be looking a little bit on my side because I have your chat in a big screen here, but I may not be monitoring the chat when I'm talking. I cannot multitask. I'm not good at that. But you feel free to drop your questions there, but just be aware that the chat is also being recorded. So what's the goal today? This is the first of two sessions that are quite different, okay? So keep that one in mind. So we're starting a little bit in a logical order. We are going to, provide a general information about summer studentships. Many of you don't really know. It sounds cool. You want to hear more, but you may not even know where to start. You're in the right session. So we're going to give a general view of summer studentships, but mostly I'm going to spend quite a lot of time with the tricky piece of all this, of the application process, which is not great ideas, because I know you all have those great ideas, but it is contacting a supervisor, which is an absolute crucial element in the application process. Without a supervisor, you can't go ahead. So I'm going to be focusing on some advice on how to navigate those, for some of you, tricky waters. For others, you feel a little bit more comfortable. So we are going to be developing a strategy to potential supervisor, but you are going to develop a strategy based on what I am discussing today. And then we are going to talk a little bit about the timeline, so it's in the back of your mind. And then hopefully I get to see everyone in November. What we are going to be going a little bit more in detail into the actual application platform, application process. So if you're wondering, this kind of sounds cool, but I have no clue what summer studentships are, don't worry, here we go. So there are awards. And that means that you enter into a competition with your application, and we allocate the awards to the best applications. Now, it is an award and not a research assistantship. So some of you are in faculty units where this is quite common. There may be labs, and you see that profs sometimes put job opportunities out there, and you're being hired to do a particular task in a lab. Well, that's not what a summer studentship is. A summer studentship is an award that you receive as a student, right? And of course, it may involve working in a lab, and it certainly will involve working with a supervisor, but it is an award. And as such, it's not conceived as an employment. right? So of course, there's going to be a considerable time commitment and efforts, but it is a learning experience, right? So you're doing this in order, it's a whole journey. The application process is already a learning experience. So it's meant to be an experiential learning, experiential learning experience. There's a bit of a repetition there. So you apply to receive funding during the period in which you will be fully dedicated to a research project that you are developing. So in collaboration, of course, with the supervisor, but you are at the head of this, right? Now, if you think I'm a first year, this is daunting, this is designed so students from first year to fourth year can be awardees, right? So you can receive this award. You are perfectly capable of doing that. It's designed in a way that I won't say it's an easy experience, but it is an experience that can be done by a first year student and by a fourth year student, okay? Now, lucky you is not just pure. I know some people know the name pure and they think it's only pure. No, it's not pure. Pure is one type of award. When you are applying for summer studentships, you are entering in a competition for multiple awards, right? Now, you're going to receive only one, but you don't have to worry which award you are applying to. In the past, you will have to apply to different, right? Different platforms, different applications. It was multiplied, the efforts that you had to put. Now, you have to worry about one project and to fill that application to your best of your capacity. And based on your demographic information, on the type of research that you are proposing, there are a couple of things that we're going to go over next time in November. We are going to decide what's the best award for you. So you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry now is to apply, to find that supervisor, come up with a beautiful project and apply, okay? And again, it's an award and it's not paid employment. So you can have those research assistantship opportunities as well. And there is an experience catalog I'm going to talk about afterwards, in which you can find those opportunities, and certainly you can have those. But this is a scholarship, an award, right? So what are these awards? Well, you basically receive a financial support to conduct research during a period that you determine. So it can be 8 weeks, can be 12 weeks, it can be 16 weeks. Of course, the amount that you will receive changes depending on the period that you will be working on your project. So a maximum of $7,500 in the case of a 16-week project, a minimum of $3,750 in the case of an 8-week term project. So where are these awards starting? That regardless of what award you receive, you will have to start May 1st. And the length will be up to, in the case of 16 weeks, the end of the summer term on August 24th, 2025, sorry. We're talking about 2020. We are in 2024. We're talking about 2025. So again, all you have to worry now is completing that application that is common for many different awards, and you have them now in the slide. As you see, there are many awards, some awards that are very removed from your area of studies. For example, I think in the neuroscience summer research scholarship, this is if you are, for example, in fine arts. Well, I mean, there is transdisciplinary research, but it will be a bit of a stretch. So you don't have to worry about that, okay? And certainly the pure awards cover a wide range of disciplines. So there is always pure there in the case that none of these awards are suited for your project. But there are tons of opportunity there. There is a diversity of awards, but only one application. You're lucky. We all work together to develop one application so you don't have to worry about multiple applications. So how do I get started? Find a supervisor. I know that's kind of the block, right? The barrier that seems to be there, that comes out many times that we're talking with the students. But today I want to give you the message that there are many ways of solving this problem. Perhaps it's not a problem at all. Perhaps you already know who your supervisor is. Perhaps you're already in conversation. So this session today will be supporting the way of maintaining those conversations with the supervisor. But again, yes, this is a step that is absolutely mandatory. There is no application without a supervisor, but there are many ways of making this a smoother process. So we are going to focus on that. So who's eligible for a supervisor? So this is a piece of information that you need to know. And the reason why is that some of your profs, some people who are thinking as a potential supervisor may not know what you're talking about, may know nothing about summer studentship. I mean, we've been for a while out there, but there are some faculty members that have no experience with it. So you are the expert. Again, that's the difference between a research assistantship and an award, is you are the one at the helm here. You are the one guiding this project. So who's eligible? Well, if you're thinking about a prof, if that prof is full-time, yes, that person could be your supervisor. So full-time UCalgary academic staff, either in the research stream and in the teaching stream. Again, you don't have to worry. Is this a research stream? If you have no clue, don't worry. If it's a full-time academic staff, it's fine. Clinical assistant, I'm thinking here more on the health sciences, associate full professors, librarian, archivists, curators. This in case of some projects, if they are full-time academic staff, they are, again, full-time academic staff. That's a supervisor that completely can take care of your project. Now, if you are in a program in which, and sometimes it happens, some of the people you know in first year are sessionals. Unfortunately, these people cannot supervise you as the main supervisor, right? They can take part, they can be co-supervisors, right? If they wish, but they cannot be your only supervisor, right? Because they don't have a full-time status. So sessional scholars, sessional profs, adjunct professors, this is another name that sometimes sessional faculty or receive in some academic units, affiliated instructors, postdoctoral students, many of them teach particularly first-year classes. So I'm Professor Emerita with an active UCID, they can be co-supervisors, right? Now you may be running through your head and thinking, what are the profs that I know, particularly if you're first year, this is your first time, what are the profs that I know? And that prof that seems so lovely, I would love to work with that person, happens to be a sessional. What can you do? Well, approach that person anyway, because if they are not able to be co-supervisor, perhaps they can suggest a supervisor, right? So don't, after hearing, don't think that, oh, I'm not even going to bother with a sessional instructor. This perhaps they are excellent co-supervisors, or perhaps they can lead you to a supervisor. So, but again, this information is very important for you to know, because your potential supervisor may be very experienced with these awards, and so it's not a problem, or they may not really know. And so you are the one educating your supervisor on this information. Sorry, jump too fast. So now what I want to know is a little bit is what's keeping you from contacting a potential supervisor. So I am very intrigued. I'm going to give you a few minutes to complete the poll, and it must be popping up now. Okay, somebody answer. So I'm realizing now I'm big relief you're receiving the poll. Okay, interesting. Let's see. We ran this workshop yesterday with the people from Ready for Research, and we had some answers. So I wonder whether it's the same. Okay. So I get some people are not sure about the area of research, but there are them. But for those who say I don't know how to contact them, hey, good news, you're in the right spot. After an hour, you will know. I don't know, faculty members in my academic unit. Okay, I have imposter syndrome of being a researcher. You should. Okay, I think we're gonna stop it now. And so what I'm seeing is 25 people here have responded. I don't know what area of research I'm interested in. And you know, this happens a lot if you're a first year student, but even if you are in other years, you're not too sure about what to research on. And this is a process. It's early on in the game, right? We're still in October. So this is stuff that, again, as long as you know kind of a topic, perhaps that focus is something that it comes out of the conversation with that supervisor, right? So don't despair, even if you know roughly the topic, roughly, you know, stuff that intrigues you in around topics that you have studied in different classes. And remember, summer studentships don't need to be the project for the summer studentship doesn't need to be exactly in the discipline that you are majoring in, right? So as long as what you want to ask yourself is, what is the area I mean to, what is that I want to learn more about, right? And there you have your topic. And that idea of the topic will help you start searching for supervisor, which is the other area. I don't know faculty members in my academic unit, and I don't blame you, right? Particularly if you're a first year student, you may know one or two people, right? So we are going to also be talking a little bit about that, or how, you know, how to start getting, particularly making yourself visible, right? And started to not network, but at least start thinking about, I'm sure somebody, those who are answering, those 21 who answer, I don't know, faculty members in my academic unit, I'm sure you know at least a person, and you can start there, right? So I am going to start dealing with finding a supervisor, right? But given that for many of you, this is already an obstacle. So I know I'm going to say the obvious, and you may be thinking, why on earth am I here? Is she's going to tell me to look at the directory, right? But yes, for example, you already have profs. All of you have profs, right? And you may have noticed that there is, you know, a particular prof that, you know, it seems great, that even if it's a large class, that prof seems great. Well, go to the directory, find out a little bit more. Another possibility is to go to a repository of information that many students don't know about, which is this experience catalog. In the experience catalog, we have some, first of all, research opportunities. I'm not talking about summer studentships, I'm talking about research opportunities. So there are people posting research opportunities there, but also you have information about people who are willing to supervise. Okay, we are asking as we speak, as I am talking to you, I'm also talking to different academic units, and I'm asking people to give me names of people who are willing to supervise. So that information, we're starting to populate those names there as well. So this is a good source to already find people who are telling, I want to supervise, right? Which saves you a step. So you want to first focus in your academic unit, right? So for those who say, I have no idea who is teaching my academic unit, go start that. Go to the webpage of your academic unit, start looking at the profiles of the faculty members in your academic unit, start familiarizing with the areas of interest of those faculty members. If your program is too small, if, I don't know, you look at their faces, the little photos, and I don't know, I don't see myself working with these people. They don't seem, for no reason, they are not looking friendly. You are having a negative day, and you can look beyond that, right? Because a summer studentship doesn't have to be done. The journey doesn't need to be done with somebody from your academic unit. Your supervisor can belong to, may belong to a different academic unit, and that's fine. So what I will start, and again, for those who tell me that you have no idea about people from your own academic unit, well, talk to your course instructor. Maybe it is a person from your academic unit, maybe it's not. And particularly talk with those course instructors that you feel that you can approach, right? It's always easier. The other thing that you want to do is every single academic unit has events. And in those events, there are people from your academic unit, there are faculty members. I know there may not be a bunch, but there are some. Make yourself visible, right? Because one of the strategies of landing a supervisor, particularly in those academic units in which this is highly competitive, that many people who are applying, is to make yourself visible. So when you're reaching out, the person says, oh yeah, I saw you in that talk, right? So you want to be proactive here. And The other thing is, if nothing of this is working, make sure to attend a meet and greet that we are having in November 20th, in which we are asking different academic units to make a brief presentation about the kind of support they are providing, and they are faculty coordinators, and some of the faculty coordinators may know people, right? That they are coming faculty coordinators from your academic unit. And we also have in that meet and greet, not only we have pizza, but we also have students, graduates from summer studentships. So you will be able to hear about the kind of projects, right? And their experiences of the award. So it is a good thing to have in your calendars if you can attend. So we are going to provide the registration details, but so now just to put there in your head is November 20th. So let's get a little bit more into the strategies to find a supervisor. So, browse, Google your first one, right? Look at the profiles in the people directory. I mean, academic staff has profiles, right? They're pretty standard for everyone. There's information about the area of interest, there's information about their publications, right? So start there, right? That's a simple search in the UCalgary website. Look at research institutes, right? Look at what they are focusing on, right? That could be another area. It could be somebody affiliated with a research institute. Look at different, some faculty members are cool enough. I am not cool enough. I don't have an individual website, but some people have websites. Some people have the CV uploaded, right? So this is, you're here with an investigator hat. Look for information is available. It's already low hanging fruit. It takes minutes to find it, right? And then you may want, right? And I would say, give it a try to look at the research articles of these people, right? One thing that we all academics love to do is to tell the world what is that we have done. So it's not tough to find those articles, right? And you are, as a student at U of C, you have access to databases with access to articles for you for free, not for the institution. So take advantage of that. Now, you may be thinking, I'm sorry, I'm in my first year, and you asked me to read a paper. I barely do that for my classes, and you ask me to write. I won't understand a thing. What are you talking about? Browse it. Inform yourself at least what are the areas of research of these people. Why? Because you want to show that you have done your homework of finding out about the person you're approaching. Right? So even if it's only that, even if you didn't figure out the whole paper, just knowing the area of research is something that you can show off, right? And make yourself visible through that. Google Scholar, your best friend. If you say Google what, well, start learning about Google Scholar. It's phenomenal. So here, what basically, not only you have papers, access to scholarly papers. Many of them you have access to, some of them you find paywall, but it is also Google Scholar. Perhaps some of you who knew about Google Scholar never thought about looking for people in Google Scholar. So if you look for a faculty member, right, enter the name. Some faculty member had developed a Google Scholar page, right? And so what it does is basically you get into kind of the web page of publications of that person. And so instead of scrambling around and trying to find in the general Google, well, you may end up in kind of information completely worthless. In here, you have basically a faculty member who curated the visibility of their papers, right? And so you know the citation, you know how impactful those papers are. You have a lot of information here. So Google Scholar, when you have already identified through profile pages, by brainstorming, by identifying course instructors that perhaps could be great supervisor, then I recommend just investigate a little bit. Look at the papers, look at, even if they're actively researching, because the most recent papers will show up. If the last paper that person wrote was in 1985, is something to think about, right? So this is all really useful info. It's part of the homework of trying to land a good supervisor, right? It's part of the job of getting a good supervisor. So again, you are not limited to working with somebody from your home faculty or department. And that's a beauty of summer studentship. An honors project, for example, you will require to work somebody from your department. But here you have an opportunity to expand your horizon, right? And so even Google Scholar is even more important, right? Because, or you know, that navigation through the pages of other departments. But I think with Google Scholar, what you have the advantage is that you can, once you've found the topic that you're really interested in, you can enter the topic and enter, for example, U of C, right, in your search and see what are the faculty members who are dealing with that topic across campus, right? So this is another way of thinking, you know, beyond your department and your academic unit. And in fact, there are specific awards, right, to projects that are transdisciplinary. And that means that you are doing research that requires moving beyond the limits, the borders of your discipline, right? So when you are working, for example, you are in Haskell and you're working with somebody from education, you are engaged in transdisciplinary work, right? And so when you are presenting an application of this nature, on our side, when we're seeing that application, we are thinking, oh, perhaps this person could qualify for a transdisciplinary award, right? And we have 10 of those in this cycle. So, okay, you have identified a couple of people, but, you know, number one in that list of people is your current course instructor. So a couple of things that I even know from experience, right, of being a course instructor. Don't come up with a whole speech, a half-an-hour meeting after class time, right? Particularly if that class was long, because people may have a meeting right after, or, you know, will be busy, and they are getting all those questions from your classmates that are asking for extension, particularly in October, right? So you want to be very smart about approaching that person after a class. So of course, it is great to approach that person and the class seems a logical time. So also that person associates your face with the class if we're talking about a big group, but you don't want to have that as your first meeting. Let's think about this approach as a kind of a making yourself visible, first approach, right? But it's not that don't prepare to be, you know, holding that person for half an hour, right? On the go. It's not the best strategy. So be respectful of people's time. Perhaps you want to go to office hours. Now, be careful with that. I will actually suggest emailing that person. So if you're a course instructor, what is that I suggest? Ideal condition. So you go after class and you say, hi, I am so-and-so, particularly if it's a large class. And you say to that person, you know, I'm interested in applying for summer studentships, and I was wondering whether we can talk a little bit more about this, right? And if the person is grumpy and angry and hates undergraduate research, they will tell you right away, no, I'm sorry, I'm not supervising. That's it. You look for somebody else. But if that person says yes, well, okay, you already is somebody who either did not understand you or is kind, or is willing to consider that, right? So you already made yourself visible. You already got a foot in. Now you want to follow that with an email, right? And say, no, by the way, I approach you this day in this class and I talk about my intention to, right? And then you expand a little bit more, but that email will not be the full description of your project. That email is your second, you're trying to get the other foot in, right? And so what you want in that email is to tell that person that you want to meet, right? At the time of their convenience, of course. And so I would say, yes, perhaps that meeting can happen during office hours, and you could suggest, is it okay if I go during your office hours? But perhaps the person, if it was me, I would say, no, you know what, not during my office hours because it's going to be packed. Let's meet sometime, another time, right? So be careful about dropping in office hours unannounced because it may not be everybody's cup of tea. So the other thing that you can do is ask for advice. You may know more senior students, right? You may go to that course instructor who happens to be a sessional and ask what I was telling you before. Perhaps you want to make to set a meeting with that person in order to brainstorm potential supervisors. Remember that a lot of the sessionals are graduate students from their own department, and they know those profs, perhaps in a deeper way than you do, right? So there may be a great entry point. Perhaps this is the person that offers to write an email, right, to that prof and, you know, serve as a gatekeeper, right, to a certain degree of access to that prof. So don't eliminate a course instructor who is a sessional because they cannot supervise, because again, they can also be a co-supervisor. So make sure that perhaps a couple of in your approach is going to be gradual, right? What you're doing is building a relationship, right? And what you are achieving is not wasted time. You are making yourself visible, particularly with popular instructors, right? In which they may be approached by a couple of people. You want to build that connection. So the person said, well, I guess I know better this student. So yeah, I see myself working 16 weeks with this person, right? So let's talk about, okay, so let's suppose that you were able, right, to make that first contact, you made yourself visible, you're ready to write that email. Now, a couple of tips there. For some of you, this will be obvious. For some of you, it kind of, breaking news. So short and specific. Don't write 5 paragraphs. Nobody has time to read that in an email. So short and specific, particular the subject line, right? So if you are going to be discussing potential supervision for a summer studentship, say that in the heading, in the subject line of the email. Why? Because if it's ambiguous, if it says hello, most likely will get deleted, right? So you want to make sure that the supervisor is not deleting that email and is actually reading it. Also, one thing that I don't know if I'm the only one, but terribly annoys me is when they put high priority to an email that is not high priority. Don't do that, okay? There are other ways of making yourself, less relevant without doing, it's a cheap trick, okay? Don't do that because it has to be only used when it's really a high priority. So the other thing is you most likely don't know this person that well. So be formal. It's better to be, if you're extremely formal, it's kind of cute. But if you're very informal, it's never cute. So make sure to be formal. And what is formal? Use the title. Academics love to be called, particularly if they got a PhD, use the title. You may come to the meeting and say, you know what? Call me by my first name. That's wonderful, but you were allowed to do it. Yeah, you now can go on a first name basis. Spelling and grammar. This is like a job application, right? Even if it's not a word, it's a job application. Don't make a spelling mistake. Don't make a grammar mistake. You have tools to make sure that doesn't happen, because you lose seriousness, right? And somebody may be thinking, you know what? Is this person didn't even bother to check the email? How is it going to work for 16 weeks in a research project, right? So this is your letter of presentation, right? Use your university email address, right? Sometimes, first of all, the emails that are coming from external accounts, I don't like to see them in my UCalgary coming from students. If that's happening, you should be giving an explanation, but don't do it. And also, some of these emails get quarantined, so you don't want to use an external email address. And also use an email signature. And so you want to state the year that you're in, your full name. I mean, everything adds to a carefully crafted email. When I receive a carefully crafted email that it is addressed to me, that is not generic, when you get those emails that you had the feeling they just changed the name, but it's the same email everybody's getting, you can again to lose, well, if this person cannot even put the job to convince me to be a supervisor, why would I supervise this person, right? So you want to make sure that you're giving the right message. So here you have an example, and I assure you this is not my email or email I got, even if I'm from Communication, Media, and Film, but it's showing you a couple of tips here. So it has a clear subject line. It says undergraduate interest. It could be even second-year student in so-and-so program, interest in communications and food culture research, or it could be, right, in interest in researching, right, in the context of a USRA. So subject line. Clear what is your intention, what is that you're communicating that message. Then doctor, right, the formal address, giving some context of you, but brief, right, enough information the person said, okay, that's the background of this student. If you are taking a class with that person, you want to say that there as well. Then second paragraph, as you see there, is introduction of the project, right? Concise. You don't need a 2-page proposal, just concise. It's also showing that you're understanding what you are thinking about. Perhaps you are not at the point in which it's so developed in your head. That's fine. Give as much as information as you can. But make sure that you kind of know what's the topic, what is that you're curious about, roughly what you would like to do. Because if it's too embryonic, if it's too fussy, it's going to be tough to have that first meeting, right? So don't send the email until you have a few things figured out. But again, you don't need to have an exact proposal in your head. Don't wait until then, right? But you have a topic, you have more or less an area that you are interested in doing. If you know more or less the kind of work that you want to do, then go and approach people. And then the last paragraph, again, if you're available, right, try to get the sense that you're willing to accommodate that person, right? Again, you're asking, I mean, it's part of our job description, right? We have to supervise, but you know, it's easy for us to say, well, if this person can never meet with me, why would I it's going to be a difficult supervision, I should better not do it, right? So you want to give the sense that this is important for you and you're willing to accommodate your supervisor's availability. So remember that research of finding out and even browsing papers, that's useful, right, for this email. So make sure that you're doing, right, that research, that when you're talking about, oh yes, imagine you're having a meeting with this person, right? That is, oh yeah, I read your last paper on this. Wow, right? I mean, for a supervisor, in many cases, the students don't read the mandatory readings, and you're doing the extra work of knowing their work. I mean, this for sure is going to be an excellent introductory, right, comment. So this is part of the learning process. Consider this part of engaging in undergraduate research, right? All this preparatory work of also making sure, I think it's also important for yourself to get to know. This is a person that in the maximum cases scenario, you're spending 16 weeks working with. You want to know this person. And then again, try to give them as much information as you can about what you're interested in. Don't worry about personalizing. This is an award to you, to your work, to your interests, right? So just be frank about what is that you're interested, what do you want to achieve with this award. So again, the more time you're putting, the more it will show when you're approaching that person. And this is a very important message to a supervisor, right? That you are willing to put that work, even at the stage of, in that very, very initial stage. It's great. It adds to you. It gives the right message. Also, do the homework or find out about the summer studentship for the reason that I was mentioning before, that your supervisor may have no idea what you're talking about. Research assistantship, I'm not hiring anyone, right? So you want to bring the information, right? And say, yes, this is for 16 weeks. This is, you know, it starts in May 1st. We have to go through an application process, right? I'm going to be giving you more information about that in November, right? So, and be prepared that there may be a bizarre ask, right? They may ask for a resume. They may ask for a cover letter. They may ask for a CV. I've never asked for that as a supervisor, but some people do. It may be the culture of your program, or it may be that supervisor is being approached by a lot of people and they want something more formal. This is perhaps strange to you, but it is within the realm of normal, right? So be prepared to have also, I'm not saying that you craft that before you even approach a supervisor, but be prepared to have to put together this kind of information upon request. So the other things that, you know, it is good to, when you're thinking about a supervisor, and this is when perhaps you want to talk to TAs or, right, just to find out a little bit more about that supervisor, also in terms of the supervisory style, right? Many faculty members are supervising graduate students, right? And again, some of these graduate students are your course instructors or your TAs, right? So it doesn't hurt to talk to your TA. And just find out a little bit, how is this person responding to emails? Is this you know, because if you feel that you're a structured person that needs, you know, guidance and, you know, really need a hands-on supervisor, this is something that you will have to pay attention to make sure that supervisor is able to provide for your needs, right? And if you are, for example, you like to deal more things on your own and have, for example, a meeting every month, and that's okay, that's working for you, then you don't want extremely hand-on, micromanaging kind of type of supervisor. So this is something also that should be part of your research, preliminary research. So you may put all this work and they may still say no, right? And that's part of the game. But you get a no, you keep on trying, because there are many people who are willing to supervise, right? So don't stay there. Oh, tell me now, well, it's not meant to be. The next person. So when you're brainstorming, don't brainstorm just one name. Think about a couple of different names. Why? Because also undergraduate research, the summer studentships, a supervisor for this kind of award doesn't need to be an absolute expert in the area, right? I think, and this is my view of supervision, it's better that they are actually experienced supervising undergraduate students, that they are actually, the definite expert, right? Depending on the complexity of the project, it's going to be a bunch of people in your department that can supervise that. It happens with honors thesis as well. So keep an open mind. Just because your topic is exactly the area of interest of only one member of the department doesn't mean that there are other members in the department that may be able to supervise. And you know what? What you can do, if the person who say no is not a grumpy monster, if it's still willing to talk, what you can do is, when you get that rejection, you can say, oh, I completely understand. Would you mind suggesting another person who could supervise this project? And perhaps you get a really good tip from that person. So you know that no, maybe the first step towards another, even perhaps better supervision, right? And actually, not to defend supervisor, but I prefer supervisor who is realistic and says, no, I can't do this, than somebody who says yes and halfway is not really paying attention to your project. So sometimes that no is a blessing in disguise. So moving into again, I think I covered everything here. So because the second point is about asking for, okay, tell me who else could be working on this. So let's get it a little bit into the application. So this is, again, something that we are going to go in depth in the November session. But just so you know, what you're going to find is when you are applying, you have here a screenshot of part of the application. You're going to be seeing listed all these other summer scholarships, right? So when you're applying, you're being considered for multiple awards. Of course, you're only receiving one. Okay, the best one for your study and for your profile. So, and you can hold only one summer studentship per academic year, right? Now, if you receive a summer studentship last year in the last cycle, you can apply again this year, right? But you cannot hold two in the same cycle. Now, I'm not going to get into details, but there are some things that have to do with your profile, your discipline, your project that will make you eligible for some awards and not eligible for others. So the eligibility sometimes is different, but any undergraduate student can apply because there will be at least one award that is applicable. Okay. Now, again, this is something that you can also get more information about those awards, but the message that I'm giving to everyone is don't worry about too much about those differences. Just make sure that you're feeding the general eligibility. And when you go to experiential learning and you go to undergraduate research, you see the general eligibility criteria. And again, it is really, really broad. So almost everyone can apply unless you're almost graduating or, it will be. And even in that case, graduating students, you may be eligible for certain awards. And then keep in mind the supervisor eligibility, right? And it's exactly what I told you. That it has to be a full-time academic member in general, and then you saw that there are a couple of different positions that will fit under that full-time academic staff. And then that keep in mind that that person can only appear as potential supervisor of 2 students, not more. Okay, so I would say if you're thinking of someone who has been supervising awards, be fast, because most likely they're already booked. So, after at 2 p.m., start thinking and start developing a strategy. So the application opens on November 20th. The application deadline is January 27th. Now, if you apply in a previous cycle, or if you were paying attention last year, you may notice that this is a little bit earlier this year. Reason is we want you to provide you more time to work on the application. So the application, instead of making it available in December, is in November already. So you can see it. You can already familiarize yourself with the kind of thinking you need to do. Now, be careful because it's due in January now, not in February. Okay, somebody tells you, no, those are due the first week of February. No, it's January 27th. And on January 31st is your supervisor's deadline, because and this is why supervisor is crucial here, because your supervisor will have to also enter some information in what we call the supervisor's application, right? So you really need to land that supervision, and it has to be stable, and that person has to be committed to supervise you, right? Now, we start with the process as soon as we get those, the supervisor's applications, we get all the information, we start adjudicating. And we are aiming to, and we did that last year, so don't lose trust, we will be there by late March, right, early April, but I'm really hoping March, you hear from us whether you got the award or not, and which award you got. Right, in some cases. So, so you can plan your spring and summer. So then the research starts in May 1st. Okay, and that will depend, the length will depend on whether you are applying for an 8-week award, 12 or 16-week award. So what is going to be in your application? Well, you need a title. Even if it's a working title, and you don't have to lose your mind over this title, this is a working title. So it may be a different one that you use for your presentation, for your papers, etc. It's a working title. The overview and abstract of the research project, again, you don't need to have everything figured out, but the more you have figured out, that you are signaling to us that this is feasible. You're giving us enough information. I mean, those reviewers who are looking at your application will have enough information to assess whether your project is feasible. Originality, creativity, and significance. This is the part in which you tell us that what you're proposing is innovative and is creative, and how is creative, right? The potential benefit to you. We're very interested in that this actually, again, is an award, is an experience, a learning experience. And so we want to know how you will learn from this, how it will be beneficial to you. And then what is the experience that you're bringing into this? And again, this is an undergraduate research award. We're not expecting you to have an impressive CV and experience in research. That's not the point of this award. This is an award to give you opportunity to gain experience in research. But think in terms of skills, right? What are the kind of critical thinking skills that you have, perhaps also interpretation skills, of data gathering skills, classes, methods classes. I mean, think about, run through your experience in university, and even in high school. You may have done a project in high school that gives us a sense that you have some sort of experience here that you can transfer into this award. So what is the homework for you? So if you're serious about this, application opens November 20th. So what is that you want to be working right now? Well, start brainstorming names, start searching those faculty web pages, start identifying, start with a plan. Identify potential supervisors, right? For the reasons that I mentioned, right? You don't want to have only one. You want to have a couple of people, 2 or 3 people that could potentially supervise your project. I gave you a couple of tips and strategies, and quite honestly, they come from a place of experience on the other side, right? Of being I've been supervising peer projects since 2020. So, and multiple, I had at least, in the last 3 years, 2 students per term. So I know what is to be asked, right? And I know what works and what doesn't work when I'm being asked. And so go over these strategies and think about, what will work. Consider the culture of your department as well, right? Perhaps your department really is a small department, then try the in-person one, right? For sure. If it's a larger department, well, try to approach. And if not, craft that email, beautiful email. So, and try to signal, I was the person in your 400 people class. I got an A in your class, right? Try to draw some sort of connection in that case. And then register for the November information session, because we're going to get into the application. So we are going to give you more tips there. We really want you to apply and to be successful. So really, we're there to give you information. It's going to be valuable. And then we have the meet and greet, and that has a cap. So we want to make sure that if you're serious, start registering, right? So you can get to do that networking in person. It's an in-person event. So ideally, late November, you want to have that supervisor. So you can start working in the application, and then you can take the holidays, and your supervisor can take the holidays, and you relax, and it's not last minute. Now, in practice, yes, I've known people who apply within a week of the deadline, and they were successful, but it's a lot of stress. And that person was lucky that I supported the contact of a supervisor, right? But you may not get that kind of support. So late November, okay, you have like comfortable month and so to work on this, right? And the first no, don't worry, just consider part of the learning experience. There will be somebody who says yes. So we are having the next session is November 27. There are 2 dates. It's the same session, so some availability there. So possibilities for different availabilities. November 27, November 28. Be careful at the different times. And that requires registration at this one, right? So, and again, we're going through the application. We're going more in detail there. And the faculty meet and greet event that I was mentioning before, in addition to pizza, you get the chance to hear from people who did the award, the people, not only they will be talking, but they will be around mingling. And so you get to talk to students who went through this. And even if in November 20, you haven't found that supervisor, you can even ask them about what is that you did? Who did you work with, right? And they will be faculty coordinators that also can help you with that. And it will be me, and it will be people who can answer your questions as well in person. Sometimes in person is easier. So keep it in mind. So I am done with the talking. I'm kind of relieved because I talked too long. So I will love to see some questions, and Stephanie also invited to join in and answer some of the more specific questions of your expertise. So I'm going to be turning my head just to see your questions, and so feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay, so the first one I think is great. It's a question about whether the research idea I should have should be my own, or it should be something that the supervisor suggests. Now, I know there are different cultures in different faculty units. I come from arts. In arts, I will expect the student to bring the project, right? And then I will suggest, and it's a collaboration, right? The application process should be a collaboration. You shouldn't be completely on your own. But I want the student to bring me a topic. If I have to develop a topic, what do I need a student for, right? So, but that may be different in other academic units. So what I would suggest is this is your award. So even when the supervisor has a project, you want to perhaps familiarize yourself with the project and suggest what is that you could do, right? So try to make it your own as much as you can. It's not meant to be a research assistantship, right? It's meant to be a research project that you are leading as much as you can. I don't know if you that answer. When should we email potential supervisor? As soon as you can. Or no, do the research this week and start next week, I would say. Can we take summer courses while doing summer studentship? Well, again, that also changes from the culture of the department. So I'm going to tell you what happened in my supervision. I had a bit of everything. I had people working part-time. I had people taking courses. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background there to understand what I'm saying is the type of research they were doing didn't require to be daily in a lab. They were working remotely in some cases. They were doing online research, right? So we will meet on campus or even over Zoom. And they were successful projects and they could manage it. So they had flexible time to do the work. So they were spending the same amount of time that somebody in the lab, but they were more flexible and that accommodated courses. But this is not the experience of everyone. Stephanie.
Yes, just to kind of follow up with that, Victoria, there are awards that do have criteria. So for the USRA program, students can take up to 2 classes during the tenure of the award, but you really do need to check in on the Award Spring platform, especially when we do part 2 of our workshop. There will be a list of the studentships and the list of the criteria and the terms of conditions. And so students should really read those because that will contain the information of how many courses you can take.
Absolutely. And something that you also want to bring up to your supervisor early on, right? We are developing a research guide. So stay tuned there. We are releasing the first chapter, and then there will be 2 other chapters in which we are even providing questions to have those conversations. So you landed a supervision, but then there are some things that you need to be talking with your supervisor about your terms of how much you're going to be in a lab or on campus, or stuff that you really need to talk early on. So I'm looking at the question in which from Calvin, does the professor have to be currently teaching at the University of Calgary for a studentship to be eligible? There is a particular lab in the U of C that is related to the topic I'm most interested in. However, I'm not sure I should reach out to them or should I find Supervisor U of C web page. I will reach out to them and ask them, now the requirements for supervision, and ask them even to share, if there is if it's a team, for example, there may be a person who is a full-time academic staff, I'm sure. And so that person could be the one appearing as supervisor. So I will reach out and find out and not exclude them or eliminate that option just because you're not sure. I would just give it a try. You're early on in the game to try it. No, at a time. Well, we're almost there. Let's see. There are other questions. What are the criteria supervisors should select students on? A grades the ultimate this is a very difficult one because it really depends. Certainly, to know the student, it is a factor. That's why I was insisting so much on visibility, right? And to start with people you know. Grades could be for some. I think also how much clarity you have on your project. Also, I guess that some supervisors will try to figure out from conversations with you how committed you are, how responsible you are. So again, that thinking about that approach as also the way you are approaching the person is giving a message. So how formal you are in your communication, how responsive you are for example, you send an email, person writes back to you and you take, I don't know, a week to respond. That gives us kind of a wrong message, right? So I think those are also things that factor in the decision, but I wouldn't be able to tell, okay, yes, this one for sure. I think it's a combination of factors because something that I try to communicate here is that it is somebody who, yes, you rely on their expertise, but it's somebody you will be working with, right, for a period. So it has to be at a human level. There has to be some trust there built. And I think we are at 2 p.m. sharp. So I guess that I will let you all go. But you have their contact information. So I encourage you to write to us if you have any of these questions. And in November, we will keep on answering questions. So make sure you register for that. Bye-bye.